In the Second World War, pistols were rarely the weapons that decided battles. Rifles, machine guns, and artillery dominated combat, especially in the harsh environments of the Pacific. Yet pistols still mattered, not because of how often they were fired, but because of who carried them and why. One of the most distinctive pistols of the war was the Type 14 Nambu, the standard sidearm of the Imperial Japanese Army. Its design, service life, and limitations reveal far more about Japanese military thinking than about handgun performance alone. To understand the Type 14, we must look beyond firepower and ask how Japan viewed pistols within its broader system of warfare. In Imperial Japanese doctrine, the pistol was not a primary combat weapon. The rifle and bayonet were the heart of infantry combat, supported by machine guns and mortars. Pistols existed mainly as secondary weapons, carried by officers and specialists. This mindset is critical. Japanese planners did not expect pistols to be used in prolonged firefights. Instead, they were emergency defensive tools, symbols of rank and authority, weapons for troops whose main duties were not frontline infantry combat. Because of this, pistols were designed to be adequate, not dominant. The Type 14 Nambu was adopted in 1925, well before World War II. Its name comes from the 14th year of the Taisho era. It was designed as a more affordable and standardized replacement for earlier Nambu pistols, which had proven expensive and complex to produce. The design work was led by Kijiro Nambu, Japan's most influential firearms designer. His earlier pistols had already established a uniquely Japanese approach to handgun design, favoring proprietary systems and precision machining. The Type 14 was meant to simplify production while keeping compatibility with existing Japanese manufacturing practices. The pistol was chambered in 8 by 22 mm Nambu, a cartridge developed specifically for Japanese handguns. This round produced moderate recoil and limited muzzle energy, but it was controllable and reliable within its intended role. Key features of the Type 14 included semi-automatic operation, an 8-round detachable magazine, recoil-operated action, all-steel construction. The pistol was slim and relatively light for its size. Its long trigger pull and unusual internal mechanism were different from Western designs, but familiar to Japanese ordnance engineers. Early Type 14 pistols, produced in the 1920s and early 1930s, were well made by the standards of the time. Machining was clean, finishes were consistent, and tolerances were tight. As Japan expanded its military campaigns in China and later entered World War II, production demands increased. Factories faced growing shortages of materials and skilled labor, while priority shifted toward aircraft, ships, and heavy weapons. As a result, later war Type 14 pistols show rougher machining, simplified finishing, less attention to cosmetic detail. These changes reflect wartime pressure rather than design failure. Similar trends occurred in all major combatant nations. The Type 14 was not issued to ordinary infantry soldiers. Instead, it was carried by commissioned officers, senior non-commissioned officers, artillery and mortar crews, armored vehicle crews, military police. In many cases, officers were required to buy their own pistols, which affected how widely they were distributed and how well they were maintained. The pistol's purpose was to provide personal defense and reinforce authority, not to replace a rifle in combat. The Type 14 saw service across Japan's entire wartime footprint, including China, Southeast Asia, Burma, the Philippines, Pacific Island campaigns. In these environments, pistols were rarely used in direct combat. Dense jungle, limited visibility, and close coordination made rifles and grenades far more important. When pistols were used, it was usually at very close range, as a last resort weapon. In rear area or defensive situations, the Type 14 was capable of fulfilling this role, especially when properly maintained. The environments of the Pacific War were harsh on all weapons. Heat, humidity, sand, and mud placed heavy demands on maintenance. The Type 14's steel construction and enclosed mechanism allowed it to function reasonably well under these conditions, but reliability depended heavily on care and ammunition quality. Late war examples, produced under severe industrial strain, were more sensitive to neglect than earlier pistols. The 8x22mm Nambu cartridge was unique to Japanese pistols. This meant ammunition supply depended entirely on Japanese logistics. However, because pistols were not central to combat operations, this limitation was considered acceptable. Sidearms were not expected to be used extensively in battle. Beyond its mechanical role, the Type 14 carried strong symbolic meaning. In the Imperial Japanese Army, weapons were closely tied to rank, duty, and discipline. Carrying a pistol marked an individual as a leader or specialist. The Type 14 reinforced hierarchy and command authority, even when it was rarely fired. This cultural role explains why the pistol remained important, despite its limited battlefield impact. Even as Japan's situation deteriorated in the final years of the war, Type 14 pistols continued to be produced and issued. This reflected institutional inertia and the desire to preserve military structure. The pistol remained part of the system until the end. After 1945, the Type 14 quickly disappeared from service. Japan's post-war forces adopted new weapons and standards under Allied supervision. Today, the Type 14 is studied less as a fighting weapon and more as a historical artifact, one that reflects how Japan approached warfare, industry, and military hierarchy. The Type 14 Nambu was not designed to compete with Western pistols in power or versatility. It was designed to fit Japanese doctrine, Japanese industry, and Japanese military culture. When judged within that context, it fulfilled its purpose. The pistol stands as a reminder that weapons are shaped not just by technology, but by the ideas, priorities, and systems of the armies that create them.